JRPGs feel right at home on a system like the Switch or Switch 2. A system where you can take a JRPG on the go, knock out a few missions or quests, maybe gain some levels, and then when you're ready to settle in, you can dock the system and then lock in for a night of adventuring. It really is a perfect pairing. Now with that in mind, over the last few months, since the Switch 2 has come out, I've really made a point to test the backwards compatibility of the Switch 1 game library on Switch 2. And I've quickly discovered that there's lots of original Switch games that just run better now on the new system, and in a lot of cases, they have received a huge boost to their performance. Of all these games I've tested so far, I've found a number of JRPGs that seem to run better, and they are very much worth revisiting or playing for the first time ever on a Switch 2. Today I'm going to share with you my top picks, as well as the improvements they get on the console. Anyway, let's dive right into the list. Ni no Kuni 2, on the original Switch, had an uncapped frame rate, and at times it could reach the mid-40s or so in terms of frames per second, but because it was uncapped, it could also experience some frame rate drops. On Switch 2, out of the gate, the game hits 60 FPS now, and it does so consistently. That boost alone does this game a lot of favors, making the anime visuals and cutscenes as well as the gameplay pop on the screen both in handheld and in portable play. It looks so good now, you might even wonder if this is some dedicated Switch 2 version or something, with how good it visually looks now when compared to the original Switch version. In addition, the loading times have been cut down a bit too, which is especially nice when it comes to the battles. Between the frame rate boost and the loading times being reduced, it's a pretty nice upgrade here overall. For those looking to pick it up, it's worth noting that the game, physically, is pretty cheap to get too. The game regularly sells for around $20 or so, brand new even, which is really nice. So if you're in the mood for a good JRPG, one that looks good visually on the system, as well as one that's very fun to play, but you don't want to spend a lot, then check out Ni no Kuni 2. You won't regret it. It's a winner. Neo, The World Ends With You is another JRPG that gets a massive jump in performance on the Switch 2 versus where it was on the original Switch. It's operating at 60 FPS now, and the load times thankfully have been reduced across the board. It looks so good now, and it runs so very smooth too. Now admittedly, for the most part the game was okay on Switch 1, but for a game as sleek looking as the game is here, you'll want it to run as smooth as it possibly can. And here, oh man, it looks amazing. Check this game out, it's an awesome game that most people have overlooked. Well, it deserves a second chance on Switch 2. If you love JRPGs, make sure to pick this one up when you get a chance.
How derivative! Was that cool or what? Not
The Romancing Saga 2 Remake is a game that recently got an upgrade to what they call a Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. This upgrade increases the max resolution to 1440p in TV mode and 1080p in handheld mode, which is the max resolution of the screen. The frame rate has been doubled to 60 FPS from the previous cap of 30. In addition, most of the textures look much better in most of the areas. Now I know the game runs fine on Switch 1, even though it has a 30 FPS cap on there, but with this update here, visually, the game just really pops now. It looks a lot better with the higher frame rate, higher resolution, and better textures and details that the game has now. In addition to all the visual updates, the loading times, which was a weak point for the original Switch version, is much better here too. It's easier to get into and out of battles. So yeah, everything seems so much more seamless now. Now, I will say that the only thing that's bad about it, or could be taken as a negative, is the fact that it does cost $9.99 to upgrade the game from the Switch 1 version. So yeah, there is a cost. it isn't free. But at the very least, they have priced the game at the same MSRP price as the Switch 1 version. If you don't have the game yet, and you don't mind digital, then you can get the Nintendo Switch 2 edition versus buying the Nintendo Switch 1 edition and then paying for the upgrade. Something to keep in mind at the very least.
It's my turn. I'll strike first.
Excellent. Tough, but we got through it together.
The remake for Trials of Mana on the original Switch was alright in performance. I mean, there was definitely some room for improvement, no one is going to deny that, but holy cow, when the Switch 1 version is played on Switch 2, the game, even without a dedicated patch or update, looks completely freaking different. Between the FPS boost to 60, and the resolution, and the texture quality boost as well, the game looks so much better. It is a massive turnaround for this game in both handheld and dock play. Plus, those pop-in issues that kind of plagued the Switch 1 version have been cut down a lot, and load times have been decreased too. And again, all these improvements occur without any sort of dedicated Switch 2 patch or update. It's amazing.
Let's just get started.
For Dragon Quest Builders 2, the Switch 1 version of the game gets a huge performance boost on Switch 2, where it can now operate at a higher frame rate, even hitting 60 FPS pretty often. If you're building some pretty complex structures though, the frame rate can drop, just like other console versions of the game, but it's nowhere like it was before, where complex builds could easily drop the game into the teens in terms of frames. If you never build any complex builds though, you probably never encounter any frame rate drops for the most part. The draw distance for this game also seems better when you compare the game running on Switch 2 versus the Switch 1. So yeah, if you were bothered by the performance of this game on Switch 1, then try this game on Switch 2. I think you'll be happy with the improvements. If you've never given this game a go before, then, well, now's a great time due to the performance improvements. This game will not only scratch that RPG itch, but that creative itch too. It's a nice mashup of Dragon Quest meets Minecraft, and it's a lot of fun. It's a game that you could easily spend hundreds of hours in, long after the main story ends, just building whatever you desire. The Monster Hunter Stories series is a neat turn-based JRPG / monster collecting RPG take on the famed Capcom series. And one of the things that myself and others really like about this second entry is how the battles are very exciting with all the flashy attacks that can occur during combat and everything. The game has a great visual style to begin with, but Capcom made sure to give some extra attention to the combat, and it does wonders for the game. Now battling is fun, but unfortunately at times, on the original Switch, you would get these little odd hiccups, and the game would stutter at times, while trying to hit 60 FPS when it could. I don't think it was a deal breaker for me personally, but I could definitely see some people taking some huge issue with it. On Switch 2, there's no worries here. The game hits 60 FPS consistently, now for a smooth experience. Getting into and out of battles is faster now too, with the reduced loading times. The game is a great experience on Switch 2, and with the third game coming out next year, now's the best time as ever to check out this entry in the series.
So that's the power of kinship, huh?
The last Remnant Remastered was originally 30 FPS on the Switch 1, and its load times were pretty lengthy compared to other versions. On Switch 2 though, the remastered version gets a nice big boost to the performance. It's 60 FPS now, and a lot of the cutscenes too are 60 FPS as well. Pop-in has been reduced greatly, and those long load times have been cut down quite a bit. Another neat thing about this game on the Switch 2 is resolution-wise, in handheld play, the game runs at 1080p, the max resolution of the screen, as opposed to most original Switch games running at 720p. The crazy thing about all this, though, is that all happens without a need for a patch. I don't know about you, but I find that actually pretty cool.
Sweet!
Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, even though it was capped at 30 FPS, still was pretty good for the most part on Switch 1. Most of the time, it was pretty much locked to that frame rate, but in a few areas of the game, the frame rate would take a hit, like Fairy Village for example. Recently, the game got a Switch 2 update that adds an option to select between two new graphical modes. The first one, called Performance Mode, allows the game to be played at a much higher frame rate, where it could even reach 60 FPS, along with better visual quality versus where it was on the original Switch. The second mode, the oddly named Graphical Mode, caps the game at 30 FPS, but allows for the best visual quality. For most players though, they'll definitely want to choose the Performance Mode. 60 FPS makes the game pop, and it looks far better for it. Additionally, the resolution of the game has now been increased in both docked and handheld modes too. So yeah, this update has done wonders for the game, and playing it on Switch 2 feels absolutely great. When talking about JRPGs, you should definitely revisit or play on Switch 2. Believe it or not, the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games are definitely in that class. Their free Switch 2 update marks a complete turnaround for the game in terms of performance and visuals. The game now operates at 60 FPS, and the update addresses the frame rate drops that absolutely plagued the games on the original Switch. Visually, it looks a lot clearer too. Things are so much sharper now, with better details. The game has been bumped up to a resolution of 1080p in handheld play, with support for 4K TVs and monitors in docked play as well. It's a night and day difference from where it was on the original Switch. Now with the update, players can finally enjoy these games without all the performance issues that were holding them back. Now, does this make them perfect? Well, no. There's still some things design-wise I wish they would have improved, and I still think some of the environments are too plain or too simple, and that raid battle system isn't the best. Though I will have to say that I did find multiplayer raids on the Switch 2 better than they were on Switch 1. They seem to be a lot less prone to issues that seem to happen to them on the original Switch. That all said, this update does wonders for these games. If you're looking to play them, then playing them on the Switch 2 is the way to go, without a doubt. And there you go, Switch 1 JRPGs that I feel you should revisit on the Switch 2, or play for the first time ever. For those curious about more Switch 1 games that have been boosted on Switch 2, I got a whole series of videos on the subject where I've covered over 100 Switch 1 games so far that get boosts of some sort on the new system. I'll have links to those videos down below if you want to check them out. In the meantime, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any future videos. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll catch you real soon on the next video.
Let's go. Okay. We fought well today.
I feel the power within me.